Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started. All right, Lou, let's jump right in. I wanted to know if you've heard about the latest epidemic.
You know what? I have actually been hearing a bit about it, Teresa. I have been. Yeah. I've been hearing a bit about it.
So the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, released an advisory on Tuesday addressing the epidemic of loneliness and isolation that's affecting our country. And he laid out a framework to address it, to call the National Strategy to Advance Social Connection.
Okay.
I mean, did you ever think that we'd be here? Like, honestly?
Well, didn't foresee it, but I do know that, especially now with all after the pandemic implications and people being isolated, and when we felt like it was a bit safer to come out, you're still hesitant to be out, and you're still on guard. I went today earlier and actually got my nails done, and there was a lady, she was coughing in there, and I was like,
that's always going to be.
Yeah, but in terms of seeing it as an epidemic, no, didn't realize it had gotten to that point,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it is to the point where we have to have some federal government intervention and planning, because it's serious. It is a serious thing. The broader implication is mental health, right? So I'm just going to read a little bit of an article that was on, I can't remember if I took this from I took pieces and parts from a few sites. MSNBC, I'm going to go ahead and just credit them. MSNBC, CNN, and I took some from the Surgeon General's website as well. So pieces and parts, quotes from those three different sources. Research has shown that loneliness and isolation, they're linked to a number of health problems, right? Sleep, inflammation and immune changes in younger adults. In older people, they're tied to symptoms such as pain, insomnia, depression, anxiety, and even a shorter lifespan. Can you believe that?
Yeah,
I never would have, I didn't make the connection. Reading this has been so fascinating to me. Mm-hmm. And people of all ages, they may be associated with higher risks of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, addiction, suicide, and self-harm, and dementia.
Wow.
Well, go ahead.
Well, Teresa, I don't know if you remember, but as I was getting ready to retire, I had hired this guy on my team that had actually retired from a long career, in government before he came to work with me. And so as I got ready to retire, he said to me, Lou, and this guy, he's an MBA and big finance guy. He said, Lou, people get concerned about their finances in retirement, but really what you should be focusing on is making sure that you're able to stay connected, that you're able to be involved and busy. He said, because when I actually retired from my, prior job with a lengthy career, he said, the finances weren't an issue, but I took off, a month, and I think he was traveling the world. He said, and then when he got back, he said, I looked around and all my friends were working. I had nobody to play with. And
Mm,
then see, then you start with the isolation and loneliness because first of all,
yeah,
you're all out of your element. You've had a big life transition, and
yeah,
then you're disconnected. And
right.
so when he warned me about that, I took because I admire him. I trust what he says to me. And so when he said that, I went to work right then, trying to come up with okay, what is
The
it going to
plan.
look like
Yeah.
so that I won't be isolated. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Surgeon General said that social connections can help. So that's just what you're talking about, right? Making sure that you have those social connections. So in a statement, he said to help. He said that the social connections can help to buffer the health problems and making communities more resilient. And loneliness, he said, he thinks is thinks of as a great masquerader. It can look like different things. Um, some people they become withdrawn, others irritable and angry. I think he said, I think the time you get concerned is when you start experiencing a feeling of loneliness for a prolonged period of time. If you feel lonely, you pick up the phone and call a friend and then it goes away. Or if you get in the car to go see a family member, that's okay. That's loneliness acting like hunger or thirst, a
Mhm.
signal our body sends us when we need something for survival. It's when it persists, is when it becomes harmful.
And
So,
see, the thing about that is just like for years how we view depression, like,
yeah,
okay, you just don't talk about that. That there is a stigma attached to loneliness. There should not be, but people are reluctant to even let anyone know, I'm having a challenge with this. I'm feeling isolated. I'm feeling lonely because then you're somehow seen as weak or there's something wrong with you. So we have to move beyond that,
yeah, yeah, we
that
do.
piece of it because when you say, pick up a phone to call, people are reluctant to do that. And the depression piece, I can get that can, that loneliness can be a piece of that because you can be depressed and you withdraw. You really don't want to interact with anyone, not realizing that's the worst thing you can be doing at that point is to further isolate yourself. So,
Right, right.
yeah.
So this problem is so bad that Murthy, Dr. Murthy has come up with a framework, and much of it, many of them are common sense things that we already know, but because this is something that is new and is happening, we have to put some basic, I think, ideas somewhere. We have to start and introduce it to people, because we're dealing with uncharted territory when it comes to this. Because when you think about a whole nation, I think in one of the articles I read, it was either 1 in 4. It's a great number of people who are feeling this way. And when you
Yeah.
think about the health implications, I mean, that could be such a terrible strain on our healthcare system, on families. It could ruin families. I want to just talk a little bit about those pillars that they're putting forth to try to help us. And I know some might think, well, these are common sense things, but I still want us to talk a bit about them. So the first,
Mhm.
strengthening social infrastructure in communities. It involves boosting programs like volunteer organizations or religious groups, policies like public transit or education, and physical elements like libraries and green spaces. Then another was the third. Well, I skipped the second pillar. Somehow I left that off. That was the first pillar. The second pillar I missed in my article somehow. But the
Okay,
third pillar,
there's a second pillar, but we don't know what it is. But go on, Teresa. I
the
love to
second
see your thorough research as usual. Kudos to you. Go on.
The third pillar relies on the crucial role. This is serious stuff. The crucial role of public health and healthcare delivery systems to address social connection. Murthy calls for increased investment in educating healthcare providers about the physical and mental benefits of social connection and the risks of disconnection. Patients' needs should be assessed and supported, and organizations should track prevalence of disconnection in communities and advance local solutions, he says. So that's the third. And you're right, I skipped the second. I will definitely add it to the show notes.
Okay.
Lou.
All right. But if you hadn't mentioned there were three, you could have just said two, but you got to be quick on your feet. I mean, you got to be creative with this stuff. Just say
okay,
there
so
are two pillars.
When we edit it, we'll wipe that out.
Folks, there are two pillars.
No.
Now, if
and I skipped the second.
Okay. 6 pillars.
Yeah.
All right.
The fourth is reforming digital environments. Murthy singles out the tangible impact of technology on Americans' daily lives and connections. Technology can also distract us and occupy our mental bandwidth with making us feel worse about ourselves. And we've talked a lot about this one, Lou, in our relationships, and diminish our ability to connect with others. Some technology fans the flames of marginalization and discrimination, bullying, and other forms of severe social negativity. So
I think that's a part of it. That's a big part of it because if you're not careful, it can start to make you feel inadequate. That your life sucks. That everybody's doing more important stuff than you're doing.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, Teresa, it's not necessarily social media, but I think part of this too is this because we're able to see the news so clearly that's happening throughout the world. It's not like you get a little snippet, but you can be overwhelmed with the behavior of some people. I find myself, I'm a bit cautious when I meet people, And so in the past, when you might have wanted to, you meet somebody and, and it's like, oh, I could be friends with her. We have a lot in common. And you might want to do coffee or something. There is a reluctance there because you don't know this person. And there have been so many cases, that we see in the news and on shows and on reality shows where somebody thought, okay, this person is okay for me to interact with. And, all hell breaks loose. I don't know if you think about that, but I think about it when meeting and interacting with people. There is a reluctance, to try to be careful in who you let in your circle. And that, I think, compounds it. Yeah.
Well, I must admit, I don't think about it for myself, but I think about it for my girls. Right?
Really? I think about it for myself.
I don't.
I'm a big scaredy cat, so that would be natural.
Yeah, I worry about who they meet and who they trust in their lives as they maneuver. But I don't.
But you're not concerned about that at all for you.
No, I never thought about it. But I
really?
That's something
that's good, Teresa. No, I think about it. I do.
Yeah. So the fifth pillar. Deepening knowledge urges stakeholders such as officials, policymakers, healthcare providers, and researchers to collaborate on a research agenda to address gaps in the data. Consistent measurement will be critical to better understanding the driving forces of connection and disconnection and how we can be more effective and efficient in addressing these states. So this is another one of those things where I saw there being a discrepancy with how we're treated as Black people, because if our doctors in Pillar 4, if our doctors and caregivers don't collect this data about us and their it won't get reported on, and we won't be seen as having these issues, and they won't get addressed. This is what this scares me about that, because you know how we're we have to fight harder to make sure that we get the I mean,
The
get
resources that we
the
need.
resources and the
Yeah.
same care, right? The same level of care. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I worry that one. That one concerned me a little bit when they started talking about making plans and taking actions based on the
Yeah.
data.
But it would seem, though, I mean, this might be stereotyping or overgeneralizing, but it seems like in our community, though, we have more family around us. We tend to live with families and, interact with family quite a bit. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
don't we even when you grow up, it's nothing for us to still be in the same household and still interact with our cousins and extended family. You know, I've said before, my first cousins are like my siblings.
Right. And
So
I think you're drawing on your personal experience in
yeah,
that.
yeah. So you
Yeah.
don't think that that's part of necessarily saves us as being a part of our culture? Okay.
I don't. And I don't because I don't feel like Murthy would have created this document or this advisory or this claim that loneliness is an epidemic were it not impacting everyone.
Oh yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's not impacting us, but I'm saying I'm wondering. It seems like this might be one area that we might not be in, fare as
I
poorly as
understand.
we think.
I
But I don't
understand.
have any evidence to bear that out. And again, you're right. I'm just going on personal experience and what I've observed in the community. So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So the final pillar urges a
And
culture.
Teresa, you can't
What are you going to
make the
say?
assessment that they shine they're shining a microscope on this because it's an issue for everyone, because you know crack wasn't an issue for anyone until it hit other people, and other things weren't an issue for anyone until it hit other people.
You know
So
what? Preach,
you
sister.
know
You're right. You're absolutely
so
right.
but I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it's always like, yeah, right. Yeah, it's an issue when it impacts you a lot. So
Yeah,
that's
you're
just
right
me.
about that. You are so right about that.
Yeah.
So, the final pillar urges a culture of connection in which Americans cultivate values of kindness, respect, service, and commitment to one another. Everyone can use their voice to emphasize these values and model healthy connections.
Yeah.
Murthy says, um, yeah. So I messed that sentence up. Everyone can use their voice to emphasize these connections and model healthy connections, Murthy says, and the nation's institutions should invest in demonstrating them. Yeah, Lou, that reminds me of what we were saying in a recent podcast where we kind of disagreed, I think, about media's responsibility in this,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I think it starts there, honestly. I mean, we have got to start being kind to one another. We got to respect our differences. I mean, I think folks should go out and listen to this past Sunday's podcast. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
And we just gotta get back to being kind, you know?
Well, and I agree, and I also believe much of that starts at the top. You know, I mean, we are seeing all manner of bad behavior.
Behavior.
I mean,
You're absolutely right.
just never thought I would see what I'm seeing from people, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
so when you see that and it's sort of permeating your spirit as you're watching this constantly, you have to be careful that you don't then become part of the problem, because it's like with other things, when you see a certain behavior at first, you may be taken aback, but then when you see it so much, you normalize it, and then you find yourself doing it. So that's what we have to be careful about. But it's just bad, and I'm telling you, I'm seeing it across. all levels. So, yeah.
Yeah,
But you're right. All we can do, though, is take responsibility for our part of the world and our part in it, and try to conduct ourselves in a way that is compassionate, that extends grace to others, so that we can sort of get back on course. But it's, yeah, and you're seeing it. Yeah,
right, right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So there was some statistics that I gathered about it, right? About the loneliness. So the lack of social, this is from Dr. Murthy's website. The lack of social connection pose a significant risk for individual health and longevity, as I mentioned. Loneliness and social isolation increase the risk of premature death by 26 and 29% respectively.
Whoa,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
More broadly, lacking social connection can increase the risk for premature death as much as smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day.
What?
Yeah. In addition, poor and insufficient social connection is associated with increased risk of disease, including 29% increased risk of heart disease and a 32% increase risk of stroke.
That's surprising and scary. You know?
Very, very scary. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I saw something that said, we don't have to surrender to this or make it more complicated, but we can take small steps. And I saw something that said, even if you're watching sports at home, or instead of watching it at home, just go to your local pub or something, and just, they have the big screens, and don't feel weird about being in there by yourself. And you just to get out and be among people, or take a walk, or speak to someone. I shared with you earlier that there's a lady, I shared with you Sunday that there's a lady at my gym that I see, and I actually had a conversation with her last week. A very nice conversation, and we see each other all the time. So, well, not like I stay in the gym. I don't want to make it sound like that. But anyway, I see her quite a bit. Just recognizing that, just trying to be purposeful about interacting with people. And I try to deal with that with my reluctance because, like I said, I'm by nature a cautious person. I think that probably some of it comes from my social work background and knowing how quickly things can go awry in interactions. But just recognizing that you can be open to meeting people. It doesn't mean they're going to become your bestie,
Yeah.
but you can take steps to sort of work against that isolation. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just led me right into my next thing. What steps can we take? So I
Yeah.
have a few of those, right?
Okay.
Stay connected with
Let me, do you have all of them? I'm just asking for a friend.
friends. For a friend.
Yeah.
You asked me for a friend. Stay connected. Stay
Just
connected.
answer.
Stay connected with friends and family. Keep it, Lou, stop. You're making me laugh. Stop. Stay connected with friends and family. Keeping in touch with loved ones can help combat feelings of loneliness. Schedule regular phone calls, video chats, or even in person visits. Just stay connected. You can join social groups or clubs. Joining a group or a club that interests you can be a great way to meet new people. Volunteer. This is
Yeah.
another great way to meet people, right? Volunteering can be a great way to meet new people and feel more connected to your community. Look for opportunities to volunteer at local organizations or charities. Exercise, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Regular exercise can help improve your mood, reduce feelings of loneliness. Consider joining a gym or taking a fitness class to meet new people while getting in shape. Try new hobbies. Exploring new
Yeah.
hobbies or interests can be a great way to meet people and find meaning in your life. Try something you've always wanted to do, such as learning a new language, painting, or playing an instrument. That was for you, Lou.
Yeah. There you go.
Seek professional help. So, in light of I really like this one. It's Mental Health Month. May is Mental Health Month. Seek if you need it. Don't feel any kind of way other than you need some help. Seek professional help. If you are feeling consistently lonely, it's important to seek professional help. A therapist or counselor can help you develop coping strategies and provide support as you work through your feelings.
And this is particularly important for, I'm thinking about groups that may be prone to isolation. I'm thinking about young
The
moms who are stuck in their homes with children and, not engaging in adult conversation. It's
yeah,
hard to be at home with kids all day. Sometimes you can't be as mobile because you don't want to pack up 50 things to just run an errand. We have to make sure we're keeping an eye out on not only the stay-at-home moms, but the dads, any parent or caregiver that's stuck inside. Make sure we're reaching out and keeping up with them. Of course, the senior population, that is a population that can particularly be at risk because they're less mobile for different reasons than the stay-at-home parent. Just making sure that they're not inside, isolated, without some type of interaction, and not to mention the caregivers, the ones who are taking care of other folks. So just be intentional and just to show a little care for people who even though they haven't said it to you, but they are in these types of roles, just to sort of check on them.
yeah,
How you doing?
yeah,
Can I help you with anything? Oh, I'm just
yeah.
going to stop by for a few minutes. Is that
Right.
okay? To,
Yeah,
to
that's
just be
good, Lou.
mindful.
Those are
Yeah.
those are all good points and things to look out for in helping people that you know might
Yeah.
fall
Yeah.
prey to this whole
Right.
loneliness. But
Yeah.
the one thing that I would like for people to do is to consider less being on social media, a lot
Right.
less.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
putting it down,
Well,
just have
yeah.
a day where you don't,
Right.
kind of like fasting, choose like a Monday,
Well, yeah.
and just
Because
don't do it.
Yeah, because Teresa, what I saw was just what you're talking about. People can be out to dinner or something, but they're on their phones.
Oh,
So
that's
you're there, but so if it's not an emergency, it's not critical. Put that down and engage with each other. I also saw something about, even when you think about college students, they're at risk because they're in these dorms packed together, but they're not interacting.
they're
Each
not.
one's going into their own little room, their silos, and they are not interacting. They too are at risk. So just because you're in an environment with a lot of people does not mean you can't feel isolated,
That's
you
right.
know, or feel lonely. We need to make sure that we don't make an assumption that, oh, well, they're in their building and at work they have all of these people, but they don't live at work. And at work, they may not be interacting.
That's
But
right.
when they come home after that, what happens? I just think to be mindful of that. And it goes back to what you said earlier, Teresa, just being civil. So sometimes it's not only about how we're not being civil with each other, there's not the care of each other from years past,
Yeah.
just being concerned about, are you okay?
Yeah.
And not even asking that sometimes, but just lending a hand when someone may be struggling with something,
Hmm.
or just need a hand. And so now we're so busy. And I think some of it is, quite frankly, we become so selfish and entitled as a nation.
Yeah.
It's like it's all about me, but it's not all about you all the time.
Yeah.
It's not about you. And if you happen to be blessed enough and fortunate enough that this is not your issue, all the more reason for you to be the one. You've got the bandwidth to do it, to help somebody else,
That's
because
right.
you're at a point where you are not in a deficit, and you are not in a deficit. So if you are not, it's incumbent upon you to be the one to try to
So
step in and fill the gap. So, but
I love it, Lou.
I just think as a nation, what we're seeing, we are becoming so selfish, and so freaking entitled. And it is all about us all day, every day. And sometimes I'm annoyed with it because I'm like, grow up. How old are you? Like 10? Really? You think it's about you? I don't have a lot of patience with that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All
Anyway.
righty.
Yeah. But
That's all I
yeah.
have on that. Lou,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah. Well, that was good even without the second pillar, Teresa. So anyway, we're going
You're
on.
not going to let me live that one down. In closing, this saddens me so much, y'all, that loneliness is an epidemic because, you know, there's so many implications to our health when we're lonely, right? Added on top of all of the other things that we deal with when it comes to that. But I just want to take a second here to recap the 6 pillars that were put forth by Dr. Murthy as a proposal to advance social connection. As well, I want to end with those actions that we can take immediately, right? To help ourselves. First of the 6 pillars, strengthen social infrastructure in local communities. Number 2, enact pro connection public policies. 3, mobilize the health sector. 4, reform digital environments. 5, deepen our knowledge. And 6, build a culture of connection. Now, I want to talk a little bit about those things that we can do immediately. We need to stay connected with our friends and families. Y'all, keep in touch with your loved ones. We can help folks overcome those feelings of loneliness. And if you're lonely, join a social group or club. Join in a group or club, like I said earlier in the podcast, that support interests that you are interested in. Volunteer. That's a great way to connect. Exercise. Try new hobbies and seek professional help. Y'all, I can't stress this one enough. If you are feeling consistently lonely, that is not good, right? And you might need the help of a therapist or a counselor to overcome it. And don't feel ashamed because of it. Just get the help that you need. That's all I got on this today, y'all. Again, thank you so much for listening to the Earrings Off podcast. Take good care.